Welcome, everybody, to another edition of 10 Things I Like here on the SevereMMA YouTube page. I am Spencer Kyte, your friendly neighborhood Spencer man, and it's UFC 284 Fight Week. We are a couple of days away from the return to Australia, UFC 284 taking place at RAC Arena in Perth. And let me tell you, it is a card that I am very much excited for. It is a card that I am very much looking forward to. There's a bunch of stuff on this show that fits into that niche of things that I like, niche of things that I know I'm probably a little more high on or a little more excited about than maybe most people. Things like Jamie Mullarkey fighting, because as Harry said on the preview that will come out today, a Jamie Mullarkey fight's always fun. It's always a good time. He's always up for a bit of a scrap. That doesn't make the list today. That's how good this collection of fights is. And we're just going to get right into it with thing number one, the best fight possible in the main event. I said this going into one question yesterday, that the main event between Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovskis for Makhachev's lightweight title is the best fight the UFC can make at this moment. Not the biggest fight in terms of name brand recognition, not, in my estimation, the biggest fight in terms of box office draw, pay-per-view draw, things of that nature. But in terms of skilled talent, men that are on unmatched winning streaks, these are the two longest winning streaks in the UFC at 11 and 12 fights respectively, champion and challenger. And skill for skill, style for style, all the things that are here, this is the best fight we could possibly have. And I hope that people, besides the hardcore set, that understand that and that get that, and the media that are talking about it that way, I hope that more people come to understand that. We rightfully take aim at the UFC for a lot of things. There's a lot of reasons we can be critical of the UFC. I understand those. When they do things correctly, when they do the things that we would like to see them do, we have to give them their plaudits as well. And this is one of those times. 4 years, Dana White has said, we give you the best, the biggest fights. We want to give you the best fighting the best at all times. It hasn't always been that way. It hasn't just been meritocracy. It hasn't been 1 versus 2. Business always factors in there. But this is the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world versus the number 2. And even if you want to argue that Islam Makhachev isn't the number 2, which is an argument I will certainly sit down and have time for, these are two of the absolute best fighters on the planet right now, going head to head on Saturday night. It is a fantastic clash of styles. It is full of intrigue, full of questions, and I cannot wait. Item number 2, Makhachev doing as promised. So on the way up to winning the lightweight title, I got a chance to speak with Islam Makhachev before most of those fights, at least the last 4 or 5. And all along the way, he talked about and voiced his frustrations with the guys at the top of the division having no interest in fighting him, right? The criticism of Makhachev along the way was that he wasn't fighting and beating the biggest names. Never to his lack of trying, never to his lack of signing the contract, right? He signed up to fight Rafael dos Anjos at UFC 267 in Abu Dhabi. That fell through. It ends up being Dan Hooker on short notice. He signed up to face Beneil Dariush last February. Dariush gets hurt. That falls through. It ends up being Bobby Green. He always signed on the contract and said, these guys don't want to fight me. They don't want to challenge for my place. But when I get the title, they won't have a choice. Just going to fight the best. And here he is in his first title defense, skipping over those guys that didn't want to fight him, that he has talked about. How do these guys win 2, 3, 4 fights and then get championship opportunities when I had to win 10 straight? So he's looking to the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world, Alexander Volkanovskis, and saying that guy has done enough to merit an opportunity. That guy has done what I did in my division in his. Let's bring him up here. Actually, let me go over to where he's from and fight him in his backyard and prove my dominance that way. And I tell you what, it's really, really commendable to me, because we've heard a lot of champions along the way up, right? Talking about, I deserve this opportunity. I've earned this opportunity. It shouldn't be about money. It shouldn't be about biggest name, all of those things. Then they get the gold and they say, well, now I've got this gold. I got to use it and I got to maximize it. And I fully understand it. I completely understand it. It makes total sense. I'm here for it as always. Want everybody to get as much money as possible. But it is hypocritical. We need to just be okay with stating that plainly. Makhachev isn't doing that. It's just, give me the best guys. Give me whoever it is. He said in his countdown video, and I don't know if it made the show or not, he's talking about that same thing. Guys not fighting him. Guys, you know, the top 5 guys not wanting to engage with him. And the words he used to explain it now were, we've solved that problem. Now they all have to come to him. Now maybe they still don't want to. Maybe they still don't want those problems, and they'd rather not fight for championship gold than deal with what he brings to the table. And listen, he brings a lot to the table, so I certainly wouldn't, you know, criticize those men for making those business decisions. But he's in the driver's seat here, and he is continuing to do what he has done throughout this run. And that is take the biggest fight, the best fight that is available to him, and just say yes every time. And I respect the hell out of that. Item 3, Alexander Volkanovski's massive moment. My question yesterday on One Question is, what if Alexander Volkanovski is just that dude? Like, what if he is just this guy that turned himself into not only the best fighter on the planet today, but one of the greatest fighters of all time over the course of his UFC run? Because when he hit the UFC, there wasn't a soul that was thinking featherweight title, yet alone best fighter on the planet. Never mind, where does he fit in the pantheon? But if he goes out here and beats Islam Makhachev, on Saturday to become a 2-weight world champion, to match Conor McGregor's achievement of winning the featherweight and lightweight titles, 5th person only to do it if he gets there, we really do have to start talking about him in terms of all-time greats. We talked about this a little bit on the preview show. I touched on it a little bit in One Question, but like, you can't, there's no more like, well, maybe this person or that person is the best featherweight. No, it's Alexander Volkanovski. And if he wins this title, I'm going to have to put a list together and figure out where he fits in that top 10. And I think it's in the top 10 all time. It might be top 5. To be undefeated in the UFC, win 2 world titles, beating this guy, ending an 11-fight winning streak against the guy nobody wants to fight. Volkanovski, to me, remains criminally underrated. And that's saying something for somebody that is the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. I think we don't understand or appreciate just how difficult it is to transform and grow the way he has grown before our eyes. We don't see it that often, right? We've seen a lot of prodigious talents come into the UFC and be amazing out of the gate and just be that much better than everybody else. Volk wasn't that guy. He was better than people because he was a better athlete and he was stronger and he was quick and all of those things. But he has built himself into an absolute monster. He's transformed over the course of this run into a complete fighter, the most complete fighter in the UFC in my estimation. And if he gets this done on Saturday, if he earns a 2nd title, closes out the show with a belt on each shoulder, he's in the pantheon of all-time greats, and I won't hear otherwise. Item 4, Josh Emmett gets his shot. So this is one of those cases of 2 things can both be true. I can both think that I don't really like this matchup for the interim featherweight title on Saturday between Yair Rodriguez and Josh Emmett, and be happy that Josh Emmett is getting his opportunity. Because Emmett is a guy that has done things the right way, that has put in the time, the energy, the work ethic, the rehab to get back from some of the nasty injuries he's dealt with and nasty health situations he's dealt with, put up the victories, that he's earned this opportunity. This is a merit shot. This dude deserves to be fighting for gold on Saturday. The other side of things, maybe not so much. One win, and it's a TKO by injury. Lost to Max Holloway before that in a fight that we all think is great, but if you ask Yair Rodriguez about it, he's like, it wasn't that good. Should be Arnold Allen. Understand that schedules and injuries and things like that come up, but it should be Arnold Allen. But I'm very happy for Josh Emmett. He's battled through some stuff that others may not battle through. He's 38 years old now. He's had fractured orbitals and terrible headaches and bad concussions after the Jeremy Stevens fight. He's dealt with torn up knees. He's dealt with all kinds of things and persevered through it all to get to this point. And every time, whether you agree with the outcome, the judging of the fight with Calvin Kattar or not, he has gotten his hand raised. And it's 5 straight at the top of that division against very good competition. And I'm happy for him. I'm happy to see him get this shot. I wish it was against Arnold Allen. I wish it were against the Almighty. But I'm happy Josh Emmett is here and getting the chance to face Yair Rodriguez for UFC Gold on Saturday. Congrats to him. Item 5, huge test for Della. I think people don't understand how good Randy Brown is, because Randy Brown is really good. He's won 4 straight, big, long, figured out how to use those range weapons, knows how to do some stuff on the ground if it gets there. Good test. Guy that's been in the UFC now for 8 years and is a great test for the 2022 Rookie of the Year, Jack Della Maddalena. So Della went 3-0 last year. Ran him down yesterday on one question. Pete Rodriguez, Ramazan Ameev, Danny Roberts. And I think there's a tendency to think that Randy Brown isn't that much of a step up from Danny Roberts. We have this, I think there's a lot of people that have this disconnect where everybody that is outside of the top 15 to a certain point is just mashed together as all being pretty comparable and not that far separated. But Danny Roberts and Randy Brown are very much separated. Randy Brown is a very good fighter. This is a stern test for the 26-year-old local boy from Perth. And the reason I like it is that this is exactly what we talk about all the time. Myself and Harry on the takeaways, me on these programs, us on the preview shows. We want to see these young athletes, these impressive athletes early in their career that have shown us they don't need to be facing those mid-pack guys anymore, get opportunities like this and face challenges like this. I don't know how this one plays out. I'm picking Della. I favor him because I like a lot of the work that he does inside, mixing things up, body, head, good power from both sides, things of that nature. But it's a difficult fight. It's a stern test for an ascending talent that's only 26 years old, that's only had 15 fights in his career, that's only had 3 UFC appearances to date. This is what he needs. We talked about it on the preview show. Harry mentioned it and said, this is the kind of fight that we want to see Ian Gary have at some point, not fights with Song Keenan like he's got coming up. And I think he's right. I agree completely. I would have liked to see that Brian Barberena fight, because even if it's a bridge too far, you've got years, because Della's 26, Ian Gary's 25. But this is the right time to do this with Jack Della, because if he wins, we're continuing to move forward. And if he wins in impressive fashion, if he continues posting stoppage wins by going through Randy Brown on Saturday, then let's get him a top 15 opponent. Let's get him in there with a Neil Magny. Let's get him in there with Shavkat Rakhmonov at some point down the line. Maybe Shavkat's a little bit further ahead because he's facing Jeff Neal. Let's get him in there. I think the one that Harry threw out was Vicente Luque. Let's do that and have all the violent fun. These are the kind of fights that I love to see, that I think we need more of. Let's not waste 3, 4, 5 extra fights bringing guys along inch by inch. Let's take a couple steps and see if they can show out and really make a run, because that to me is how you build even greater momentum and recognition and prominence within a division within the sport itself. It's one thing to kind of matriculate along and be winning all of these fights against middle tier opponents, guys you should beat, to where you get to 5, 6, 7 wins. And then everybody goes, yeah, but he still hasn't faced anybody. Let's skip the point where he hasn't faced anybody and get him facing some people. If he wins, get him facing somebody else tough. If he loses, we take a little reset and we start going again. It's the right way to do it. It's a great fight. I can't wait to see it. Item 6, explosive light heavies opening the main card. Jimmy Crute, Alonzo Menafield in a fight that I haven't looked at the number yet. I will look at it before Ian and I record the Severe Picks and Plays later today for your viewing and listening enjoyment on Friday. But I'm going to look hard at the under 1.5 rounds for this fight, because these two dudes don't like going to the judges. They don't really like going to the second round, for that matter. Jimmy Crute's in an interesting position, coming back after a year away, had ACL injury, had that repaired, 2 straight losses, the leg situation against Anthony Smith, where he got kicked and got the drop foot, couldn't continue, and then got knocked out by now champion Jamal Hill. Still only 26. Been in there a few times, gotten some solid UFC experience. And he's still only 26. Alonzo Menafield, little older, explosive athlete, big, strong, powerful, dynamic, run through you, nasty dude when he's firing hammers. He's won 2 straight, call it 1.5, because the, Ashkar, whatever his name was, that we don't even know for sure that it was his name because his record wasn't for real. Take a little bit off of that one. But he's a big, strong, powerful dude that could, if Jimmy Crute isn't careful, hand him a 3rd straight loss and pick up for himself a 3rd straight win. We talk all the time about fight card construction and having the right fights in the right places to maximize opportunities, to showcase people, things of that nature. This is the right fight to open this card. Regardless of what happens on the prelims, we're going to load in 7 o'clock here on the West Coast. We're going to get the intro. We're going to get the cold open. It's going to get us hyped. We're going to get to Anik and Bisping and Dominic Cruz talking about it. Dateline, Perth, Australia. And then we're going to get these two dudes go in there swinging hammers and looking to finish each other quickly. And it's going to kick things off really well. And I cannot wait. Number 7, a step up for Tyson Pedro. Now, Modestas Bukauskas isn't necessarily a grand step up, especially coming in on a couple weeks' notice after fighting twice in the final 8 weeks of 2022. But he's a step up from the guys that Tyson Pedro faced last year. Pedro was off for over 3 years, returned to action last year, posted 1st-round stoppage wins over Ike Villanueva and Harry Hunsucker, who are 2 dudes that are older, inexperienced overall in terms of just facing and beating good competition, didn't have any success in the UFC. They were clear wins. He was a massive favorite, finished them both in the 1st round, looked good doing it, and now he gets a guy that in his last 2 fights, right, returns to Cage Warriors, so bounces out of the UFC after 3 straight losses and a knee injury courtesy of Khalil Roundtree, rehabs that, comes back, fights in November, gets a win, fights on December 31st, wins the Cage Warriors title, and now he's back. He's still only 28. He's still just a baby in this division. He has good power. We've seen him have success to get to this point before. And so for Tyson Pedro, who has been in the top 15 at one point, is still only 31 years old, has shown elements of being somebody that could grow and develop into a legitimate contender, or at least a quality middle of the top 15 fixture at light heavyweight. This is the right kind of test. This is the right kind of fight that he needs to have in order to just show that he can get there, that he's ready for that next step again, that he's ready to start facing some of these ranked opponents again. I really like Tyson Pedro. I always have. Good dude, really gregarious, really affable. Love the personality. Let's see what he can do on Saturday. Item number 8, another look at Melsik Bagdasaryan. I said this yesterday on one question that, my question was just, who is Bagdasaryan at this point? Where does he fit? Because he's 31 years old. He's 2-0 in the UFC. He's on a nice little winning streak, but I just don't have a feel for him because he hasn't fought in over a year, because he has an air to me of somebody that isn't all that bothered. Now, that may just be a bad body language, bad presentation read by me. Fully open to acknowledging that here and now. And so I just want to see in this fight with Josh Culibao, who has been good since moving to featherweight, 2-0-1, won his last 2 after a draw with Charles Jourdain. Just who is Bagdasaryan at this point? Because this feels like a fight where if he's somebody we need to pay attention to, if he's somebody we need to keep tabs on, then he should and could come out and burn through Joshua Culibao the way he did Colin Anglin in his promotional debut, their joint promotional debuts. If he's not, this is a more competitive fight, and that tells us something as well. And I just want to see it. I'm all about give me the evidence so I can make my decisions and my reads and formulate opinions from there. I haven't seen him in over a year. He looked okay last time out in getting a decision win over Bruno Souza. So let's just see. Because the raw materials are there. There's pieces that are interesting. The reason I'm curious and looking forward to seeing it, and it's one of the things that I like this weekend, is because there's pieces. So let's see if there can be more. Item 9, the debut of Jack Jenkins. So this is certainly tinged by my having talked to Jack Jenkins earlier this week. I was already interested. I was already excited to see his debut because I thought he looked good coming off Contender Series or earning his contract on the Contender Series, a sort of tenacious late third round stoppage win to get his contract. He is another one of these guys that the Australian media that I follow talked about going into his Contender Series fight. So it puts him on my radar. I liked what I saw. Was always going to be curious to see this. Then I spoke to him earlier this week, and he's one of those guys to me that just he doesn't strike me. He is a debutant, but he's not a newcomer. Turns 30 next month. I think that's a big part of it. He's been around this sport for a while. He's trained with some very good guys. He's worked his way up slowly, and he just has an air of both confidence and understanding of the moment. He's not letting this be bigger than it needs to be. It's just a fight. It's a matchup with Don Shainis that is a fight I think he should win, where he has an opportunity to really show out. He's talked about, I don't need to go a slow road because I'm 29, almost 30. I've put in this experience. Let's just get it. And I really like that. I really dig that. He's not wrapped up in, oh, now I'm a UFC fighter and getting that, getting like he's 2 feet taller, getting like he's suddenly worth a whole lot more. As we see with some people, he's just still Far Jack. He's just still the dude that's been putting up wins for the last 7 fights to get to this point. And I think he's somebody that has the skill set, that has the focus, that has the drive to do similar to Jack Della Maddalena. I'm not saying a string of first round wins, but a sudden, quick ascent into a position as Della is now on the main card of a show back in Australia, battling for a place in the top 15. I asked him if he could map out sort of the next year, what it looks like. And he said, fight in Perth and win, fight in New York City and win, fight in Vegas and win, and be back at Rod Laver in Melbourne, where he's from, next year, facing a top 15 opponent, or just to get somebody that puts me in if I win. I like that mindset. I like that sense of calm, veteran understanding from a guy that's readying to make his debut at home where there is more attention on him. I think he's going to look good. Last one, Number 10, more Loma Luke Boonmi. Listen, you give me a fighter that's developing before my eyes, and I'm in. And Loma has done that. She came in still very green in terms of her MMA experience, still very raw, but has shown flashes of development, flashes of talent, flashes of upside all along the way. And I'm happy to see more of it. I'm always going to be interested to see what that next step is. She takes on Elise Reed on Saturday in a very solid matchup, a winnable fight, a competitive fight. I think we are going to get an opportunity to see that further development if there has been some. I've liked the way that she's working in trips and sweeps and those things. I think the hands and the elbows and the kicks are solid, especially for this division. I think there's upside there. I think she's somebody that can work her way forward and maybe become a top 15 fighter before the year is out. And so, as I said, you want to give me a developing fighter. You want to give me somebody with upside that has shown me, given me reason to pay further attention, that works with good people, that is getting good training and has done the right things, taken the right steps. I'm always in. She was real open about dealing with some emotional issues and some depression issues after one of her losses in the UFC. And that's always gonna put me on somebody's side as well. You want to be open, you want to be vulnerable, I'm in your corner. So I'm happy to see Loma Luke Boonmi back. As I said yesterday, I would be happy to hear my guy George Hickman shouting at her in Thai in the corner. I'm happy that you guys have stopped by to check this out. I hope you are getting excited. This fight card, UFC 284, should be really entertaining from top to bottom, start to finish. We open with Zubera Tuhugov. We close out with Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski. It should be terrific. Ian and I will be around tomorrow for the Severe Picks and Plays. The preview show will be up later today. Check that out. Check out everything everybody is doing over on the website, over on the Patreon, SevereMMA.com/pints, the best URL in the business. It is well worth the price of admission. You get a ton of great content covering everything from Speaker's Corner to the Old Triangle to the Big Show to me making occasional appearances on things. Harry and I doing the takeaways every Tuesday. Check it out. It is worth it. Tons of great content. Continue checking out the YouTube page. I know the boys have been putting up a bunch of interviews lately with some Irish products that are coming up, going to be fighting on the Cage Warrior show in Dublin and other things. Harry's done some stuff with some of the IMAF guys. Definitely check that out. Follow them all on Twitter. Follow me at Spencer Kyte. Know that we love you. Know that we appreciate you, thinking about you, care about you, value you being here. Take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. We'll see you tomorrow.